Hey, welcome. So this is my Psych 734 class from George Mason University on the measurement and study of peak performance. And it just so happens that this is a course that's a culmination of probably years or a lifetime of collecting experiences, but also learning about research and measurement and how I can take all of my interests in performance, adventure, athletics, academics, and tie them all into a single course that is really an introduction to for graduate students so they understand what peak performance represents and why it's an interesting thing to study, and how peak performance is actually something that is nested or ignored largely, but it's nested in a lot of different studies that you don't really think about, like looking at tests of cognitive ability, or broadly speaking, intelligence. Intelligence is assessed solely by peak performance measures. Um, we make assumptions that people are likely to be performing at their peak when they're testing, so that when we offer examinations, we expect exams to represent the best that people can do. And these peak performances are then evaluated and used, and we're using them in such a way that probably it wasn't what they were intended for. So in this class, we're going to talk a lot about what the peak performance represents, how it was measured, um, what might actually be a moderator of performance, and perhaps even a mediator, something that comes before it. And we're going to talk about research design and statistics and measurement. But most of all, it's all going to be in the backdrop of how to measure performance and ensure that the performance that you're measuring is the peak from the individual. Now, also, we're going to expand that performances aren't always at the individual level. Some performances are group performances, like teams, work teams in business and in government. Teams can perform optimally or suboptimally, and there may be times in which performances are optimal at a specific period of time, but the time that it's optimal, the optimal performance exists, may not work in aggregate for all of the performance times that we expect. And as a result of that, we may have a peak at the wrong time. So currently in Major League Baseball, it's the summer right now. And in baseball, there might be teams that are peaking in the summer, but when the time comes for them to play in the playoffs, they may not be peaking as a team. So you can have it at the individual level, you can have it at the group level, but we oftentimes think of peak performance at the individual level. And when we and also group performance can be broken down into individual contributions. So you can have individuals who are suboptimally contributing below their abilities, and it may not really adversely affect the team. And in some instances, we want people to, if they're a member of a team, that optimal performance and peak performance for a team may mean that an individual doesn't contribute at all because their contribution may be negative. So with respect to timing, we want to make sure that the peaks are occurring when we value them. We also want to make sure that peak performance is what we care about. Sometimes we say we really want the high performance people, but maybe their average performance is pretty poor. Or maybe after they've had a peak performance, when they experience a setback, they can't handle it. So they end up having suboptimal performances afterwards. And that's part of what I want to talk about for 15 weeks. This is exciting stuff. There's a lot of literature that we're going to discuss. It's not going to be overly burdensome. I don't intend to have much more than probably about an hour or two of reading a week at most. A very brief video like this where I give you an overview of what we're going to do. And it's going to be a fun semester. I would consider this to be a fairly light load, but one that is intellectually stimulating, I hope, and gets people to start thinking about peak performance from a standpoint of a researcher, not just as a person who's interested in performance-based measurement or in terms of performances like performance art or sports or in business. So there's a lot to this, and I look forward to the semester with you. All right. Hope you're enjoying your summer.